Can you hear me, Wendy?
I can hear you. We're
Hi.
gonna take a minute to get the video working.
Okay, I'm gonna go back out again. Bye.
All right, I think you can start your video now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, yay, Wendy, I figured it out all by myself.
Hi,
Welcome,
Rabbi
everyone.
He's muted.
We'll wait a few more minutes for a few more.
Good morning.
Hi, Bonni.
Oh, it's afternoon.
It's right at noon right now. So that's officially afternoon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me for a minute.
Hi, guys.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see your smiling faces.
Hi.
Finally got my stuff all adjusted.
Hi, Andie.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Scott. How are you?
Doing well
Where are you?
in Los Angeles.
And you're safe from all the coronavirus?
Andie, did you cut your hair?
I did, and now it's getting long and shaggy and really needs professional help. But as we all know, we can't get that right now.
I'm glad I'm naturally curly so my roots don't show.
Oh yeah.
Rabbi, were you trying to say you need a shave on your beard?
Unmute yourself, Rabbi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you? Are you okay?
Thank God. Thank God, Ann.
I am too.
Scott, are you guys have classes?
We're in class via Zoom.
Oh, okay. You know, they cancel ordination.
I know.
My nephew will not be able to be ordained officially.
It's so sad.
I know.
You mean they delayed it? They'll do it sometime.
I don't know how it's going to happen because the people will be already on a job, and it will be strange to try to recruit all of them to come back to Cincinnati.
Can they Zoom something like that or not?
Yeah, they can do Zoom. Zoom is the magic word, but it's not
No,
the
it's not the same. I know, but
You need
we're
to
under different circumstances now.
you need to feel the hands of the president on your head.
Yes.
Stop it. Stop it. Hello?
Hi. The creature that you're talking to?
Yeah.
All
When are you
right.
doing the garden this weekend?
What did I do?
When are you doing the garden this weekend?
When am I due? Oh, on Sunday.
What time?
Rebecca Bloom is going to come and bring the garden some potatoes for us to plant.
What
So,
time? What time?
You know, it's Rebecca. It could be, I'm saying 2:30. So maybe by then there'll be those extra beds there, those brand new, beautiful beds in the garden. What do you think, Wendy?
I haven't heard the timeline on it, but I know that they're ordered.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So I hope, do we have a few minutes before we start, or are you starting?
Oh, you can give us a little update first. Introduce yourself. Not everyone knows you.
I'm Bonni Leiserowitz. I am lucky enough to be part of the Tri-Faith Initiative and working on our beautiful garden and orchard on the Tri-Faith Commons. And we already have 8 beds out there. We're supposed to expand and have 8 more very soon. And after that, we're going to put in a plot for pumpkins and melons. We're going to really expand this year. I can't think of a better year to be focusing on feeding people. That's what I want to say. We know what we're going to do, and we're going to keep communicating to you about all that. But what I hope is that when people are thinking about getting outside this year, that they're mindful about feeding people. Plant an extra row, buy a couple extra plants, and plan to donate their produce to people. There's all kinds of things to do. And if you don't think you can plant, maybe one of your neighbors is planting and you can buy seeds for them. Or maybe you can have a container garden. We have a person on our committee who's an expert on that, who can help. So let us know what you're thinking. Where can't they donate, Wendy? Saving Grace, the food bank, any of the places that we go. There's people that need this food.
Thank you.
Think about it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Such good work that's happening in the community garden on the Tri-Faith Commons. I'm Wendy Goldberg. I'm the Executive Director of Tri-Faith, and I want to welcome you all here today. I'm going to start with a little reading, and this intends to be a very interactive session. The reading is by David Kessler, and David Kessler contributed to the work about the stages of grief. And I believe I guess I'm starting with where I hope we end is so David Kessler took these 5 stages of grief that had previously been taught about, and he added 2 really important concepts. The first is a 6th stage of grief, where you reach meaning. And the second is he articulated that those stages of grief are not linear, that we can't expect to move between the stages of grief with any sense of order. And if nothing reminds us of that more than this moment of chaos, is that I can't keep track of what day it is or whether it's morning or night. And so how would I possibly keep track of how my emotions and my feelings are also in tune with how we're navigating this very heaviness of grief and lament. And so this reading really touches me, and I hope it touches you. Each person's grief is as unique as their fingerprint. But what everyone has in common is that no matter how they grieve, they share a need for their grief to be witnessed. That doesn't mean needing someone to try to lessen it or reframe it for them, The need is for someone to be fully present to the magnitude of their loss without trying to point out a silver lining. And that's the boundary of this container today, that we'd like to set a safe space for us to have a conversation about the pain and the loss and the grief and the heartache that we are feeling in this moment, and to give permission to feel the feelings together here as a community, and that everything that we say is okay, and that we're each going to do it in our own unique way, in our own unique time, and that showing up to share together is what we are doing to be authentic about that. I personally wanted just to share a little bit more about my journey in the last 10 days to really dig into understanding the Book of Lamentations, and to realize that my tradition has a great deal to teach about the experience with pain. The Book of Lamentations is 5 old poems about heartache and woundedness, and it is grounded in the city of Jerusalem and the destructions of the Babylonians. Sometime scholars say around the year 500. And the consensus is that these poems were written by the survivors of catastrophic destruction of the city of Jerusalem. And it's from that place of deep pain that feels very familiar to me right now that I started to think about with other spiritual leaders also. Rob Bell is, and I'll share a link to, he's a Christian theologian who was evangelical and was actually ousted from his church because he believes that everyone is entitled to salvation, including gay people. And so that didn't work out for him and the church. So, but in 2015, he wrote a great deal about how we can learn from the Jewish Bible and this Book of Lamentations. And he highlighted in looking at this poetry that that people often ask for forgiveness when they set up talking about their grief. And I believe many of you have had this experience where someone comes up to you and they say, I'm sorry, I'm not making a whole lot of sense right this minute because my sister's something just passed, or I just lost my job, or I'm sorry that I'm not my whole self are present with you right this minute because I just found out that my spouse has cancer, right? And yet it is the most authentic place when a person offers that realness with you to connect and share that they're having this human experience that is talked about in the Book of Lamentation, this uncovering of pain and naming of pain. And it is, in fact, the scholars teach us that it is this uncovering itself that leads at some point to healing, to that idea of that 6th stage of finding meaning. And I'm not expecting in this moment that we're here to understand what this moment has to teach us in the long term. But today, what do we have to learn from each other in our shared pain? Ooh, so let's let Karen into the room here. 1 second. And so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put up a little poll. Let's see where we are with the poll. Tell us about the kind of grief you're experiencing. You can check more than one box.
You have something you want to put in?
Let's see, the 3rd and the 4th now.
No, the fourth and the fifth one.
I'm going to do this one.
All right. Almost everyone's had a chance. Can you all see the results also? No. All right. Let's see if I end this now. Can you share the results? So now, without speaking, you know what we're holding in our hearts. It's heavy. Is there anyone who would be willing to unmute themselves and tell us what this grief means for you? You can raise your hand or you can just unmute yourself, either way.
I can tell you.
Please.
My husband died 2 years ago this summer, and my grief kind of comes and goes. I didn't feel an overwhelming grief when it first happened. I mean, I was extremely upset and sad, but I was able to function. He had been in the Rose Blumkin for 2 years, and then the year before off and on. So I was a little bit used to living by myself, and also knew that, you know, something was going to happen. But it's a funny thing. While we're going through what we're going through right now, it's kind of hit me off and on a little bit more. And I kind of think, I wonder if he knows what I'm going through. And, you know, that I can't see my grandchildren or I can't go anywhere. And I have plenty of friends that I talk to on the phone. I have you guys, we Zoom. I go to services on Zoom, and I go to Ryan's classes on Zoom. But it's different, and I wish he were here. But I'm not sad, and I'm functioning fine, and I'm getting a little choked up now that I talk about it, but it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you.
And Aria was a great help to me also. It's just, you know, I have support and everything, but that's kind of where I am. And I'll mute myself.
Thank you.
I had an interesting experience the other day. Many years ago, I belonged to a liturgical dance company in the Boston area. I moved from Boston to, maybe for 15 years. I moved to Boston, from Boston to Vermont, and I missed those women. They were a really solid part of my spiritual development and support when I was at seminary, and they were good friends. And so it was a time of loss. But I moved to Vermont, and I lived there for 18 years, and I was in contact with them. I started my own liturgical dance company there. I retired, you know, we just, we don't have the resources to Zoom. We've chosen just to have a 15-minute period of time when we email into each other and have our same prayer circle that we had then. And I had no great expectations for that time because I couldn't see them, I couldn't hear them. And the first time I went on, we were closing out, and the leader of this prayer circle started to write on email all of the rituals that we went through. I couldn't see them, I couldn't hear them. All I could do was see her words and remember our time together. It was so emotional. I was so surprised that I could feel that emotion coming up with me, in me, because I thought that that was all processed in me, but I was wrong.
Thank you.
So this is Andie. I had an opportunity yesterday to talk to a young man who's a senior in high school. And we started talking about that he missed his prom and that he's not going to have graduation and that all of his personal belongings are still at school and they can't get in to get those. And it really struck me yesterday that what we're going through now is impacting all of us, not just, you know, in different ways. And, you know, I was thinking about what a major transition it is to graduate from high school and how that's going to be missing. And then I had an opportunity to talk to one of my coworkers who's had to explain to her 5-year-old, you know, why they can't go see grandma and grandpa and why, you know, why daycare looks different. And so it's just in the last week hit me that this is not going to be over in a month or 2 months, and that the impact of this time, we're going to always look back on it and talk about this. And I firmly believe that this is going to change the world as we go forward. And I just hope it's in a positive way. I just hope that people, you know, are having conversations like this and understanding how people feel, and that when we get on the other side of this, we're all going to be more empathetic moving forward.
Thank you, Andie. Lisa?
You know, I really appreciate what Ann said, Ann Pickle, because I had that same experience. My husband passed away. It'll be 5 years this fall too. And on one hand, I miss him and I wish he were, and there have been times when, you know, you don't even think about it. And then you wonder how he would respond. I don't think he would respond very easily to this. Well, REA knows he would respond very differently to this. But my comment was just that there's such a domino effect on everything. So that, you know, 1 minute you're thinking of one thing, and then the next minute, you know, somebody can't pay their bills, and then you know, it's just that everything impacts something else. And that's what, to me, it gives you waves of kind of grief or lamentation, or it just comes in waves sometimes when one thing, for example, I have a little shopping center. Well, you know, the beauty shop couldn't open, so now they can't pay their bills. I still have to pay my bills, but you know, it's just financial, it's emotional, it's everything that happens impacts something else. And I certainly agree with Andie. I hope this changes us, but I don't think that it's going to go away soon. And I think that we have to, we're just going to have a whole new world out there, and hopefully we all survive to experience it, and that, you know, maybe there will be some good of it. But anyway, that's it. It was that domino effect that certainly hits us all. I'll mute myself if I can figure it out.
I can help you.
There.
Anyone else on that one?
For me, my grief hit about the first week that everything went virtual. My son's choir group and everything went completely online. He wasn't able to be in person. I couldn't go either. And our parents group section of that, we're all discussing, you know, what's going on and how our kids are dealing with it. And our kids are also adults in some manner. And it hit me as everyone's talking about what they're going to do when they're able to be on the other side, when they're able to go out and do all the normal things that they used to do. For me, this is my normal. This is my daily life before COVID and after. So it was hard listening to everyone talk about the after and the joy they would have in doing their normal again.
Thank you, Karen. Jeremy, do you want to talk about your message that you shared? No is an okay answer. Okay. Jeremy shared some thoughts in the chat if you are interested in learning what's on his mind.
I need to be a little cynical at this moment.
Go for it.
Yeah. So the book of Lamentation that is ascribed to the prophet Jeremiah, but who knows if he did it or not, but he lived during that period of the destruction. I'm sure there was a conversation after the book was introduced into the Jewish canon that we will never forget it. And it's so interesting because this is a self-critique of our own movement, the liberal progressive movement. When was the last time that any one of us went to a service commemorating the story, the history of the Book of Lamentation? I think it will happen.
It's Tish B'Av, for those who don't know.
What? Say it again?
On Tish B'Av.
Tisha B'Av, yeah, but Tisha B'Av is not one of the major holidays that is commemorated by Reform liberal Jews. I think it will happen to this story too. I think the story of the corona or COVID-19 will have a commemoration once a year for a while. And then September 11 will happen again. How many September 11 commemorations exist now in comparison to the first few years after September 11? Maybe once in a while we have those moments. I think the human soul wants to deeply overcome any kind of tragedy. I don't think we can live with the tragedies for the rest of our lives. I think there is a need for some fresh air, for some oxygen. And so, again, maybe it's a little bit of a cynical view of this, but I think this will be the reality that is going to happen a few years after, maybe in about 20 years, maybe less.
So I would build on that to say that, so Kathleen O'Connor, who's a Christian theologian, reflects on the Book of Lamentations, and she suggests that Lamentation names what's wrong in the world, what is out of order, and keeps human beings from thriving in all their potential. The simple act of lament exposes these conditions, names them, and opens them to grief and anger in order to make them visible for remedy. And I think that's certainly necessary in this moment. So an example that was shared with me is that in 2015, there was this whole uproar around whether or not people should use the language in rap music that they use. And there's a whole movie made about it. And we as a society decided that our answer to this language in rap music was to put stickers on albums to notify people to beware of the language on the record. But to lament about that moment in history is to ask ourselves, what is it about the pain of those human beings suffering and experience that their only way to express their lived experience was with those harsh words? And that the question of the time was to say, why was the human experience that difficult for that generation of young Black men? We didn't uncover that. We put some stickers on the albums. So what is it about this moment, this COVID-19 moment, that is calling us to lament, to be pained by what is broken so that we don't look back on this as a 9/11 experience and say, okay, we take our shoes off and we don't put water in our bag to go on the airplane. You know, what do we have to show for 9/11? And what will we have to show for COVID-19 from this pain that we're feeling right now? What needs to be uncovered? What about your pain do you need us to help uncover?
So Wendy, this is Janelle.
Hi.
And I would really like to add on what you're saying, because when we talk about going to a new normal, I want to use the term better normal. I want to get to a better normal. I want to where we think about value of people before money, or we think about disparity of opportunities for people. And so I want to, I like what you're saying. I want to say my fight isn't to go back to normal or just to say I accept the new normal. I'd like to think we're building a better normal.
Can I add? Can I say something, Wendy?
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that needs to happen at this point in time is that we need to understand that going through the process is not only a spiritual and an intellectual and an emotional, but it's a physical. Our bodies need to go through this physically, and we need to cry. Crying is healing. I have been having some conversations with people about the science of tears and what happens to your body as you cry, and your hormones and your connection with your brain. So I think connected to that, one of the things that I realize is that it is very terrifying to go into that fear. The fear of being the where we are right now. It's scary to go into that grief. So going into it, we need each other to walk into it. We need our own space alone to do it. But it's almost like, and what Rabbi said and what we all need as we go through it, we need to go into it and know that somebody's going to hold our hand so we won't drown. Because that's very scary to go into that kind of grief and to be that alone and to feel that alone and to feel that terrified that will I ever come out of my sobbing? If everybody's, you know what it's like to sob, to really sob deeply and never feel like you're ever going to get out of it. But when you do, you're kind of cleansed. And I think what you said about the cycles of grieving, you know, that's going to come and go. That's going to come and go. Hopefully that will come and go because that's cleansing. You get to a place where you release all that gunk and then something else can come in. And I don't know why I was just thinking about a mikveh again. I have this image of going into some body of water to be cleansed. But I don't know if I have anything around that other than to say it is not, the grieving and lamentating process is in and of itself a physiological, physical thing. And I think that's the thing that we need not to hold back on, but to know that somebody's holding our hands or supporting us or whatever when we go through it, because it's pretty terrifying right now. And I think that there needs to be hope. I don't think we can do this without hope. We can't just stay here. Sorry. We can't just stay here. We can't. We have to go through it. And it's what's that prayer that, you know, you have to get to the shores and the only way to go through it is to go through it. But we really, I'm sorry, let me get rid of this call. But we really, I don't think we can do this without doing both sides of it. And I just think it's okay to cry. I mean, we need to cry, and then we need to know that we need to be comforted. Even though you need to go through it, we need comfort. And that's, my grieving needs comfort right now.
Is anyone else having that experience?
I wonder if I could add to that. As a mental health and addiction counselor, and working with people mostly on Zoom, I do work with a group of doctors, so everyone is checked. I thank you. I want to thank Karen for sharing. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Rabbi. My sense is that in this time, we need to really absorb and say, okay, we're living in the now moment. now is the only place where God is, and to really take advantage of all that we can learn, how we can grow, how we can weep, how we can mourn, not just for ourselves, but for others that perhaps we were not even recognizing the way people live or their needs because we were so busy. So to be thinking of, oh, I can't wait till this is over and I'm going to do this, and oh, this is going to happen and I get my toes done and all of that, that's living in the future and it's not living in the now. So in this now moment, it's very precious to take everything in, to rejoice in all the good things that people are doing. There are so many wonderful things now that I'm able to see people doing, reaching out. And then there are those sad things, and to mourn over those with everyone else. To me, that's a very important piece of this.
Thank you so much.
Becky Balestri. I used to be pastor at Underwood Hills and know a few of you through the ecumenical Thanksgiving services. My father was 14 years old when the Great Depression started. And so my childhood was filled with stories of the Great Depression. And a month ago, I even started talking about we're going to have a depression. And people were poo-pooing me. And today, my boss said, there are more people unemployed than there were during the Depression. I grieve when people talk about wanting to return to normal and that maybe we should be evaluating a new normal, because there are a whole bunch of people that would like the normalcy of going back to their jobs. And I really want to be careful about saying they can't go back to the normal of earning a paycheck. So my dad's words keep haunting me. Jeremy wrote about haunting, and I'm trying to be careful not to judge others, but I'm hoping also that those of us who have jobs and are getting paid can understand that a return to normalcy will help a lot of people. And I don't get many chances to express that.
Thank you.
I'd like to add on to this conversation. 16 years ago, I went in for corrective surgery, but the surgeries didn't work and it left me disabled. And I lived on a farm then. And so I spent my days alone, a lot of time alone. My husband worked long hours. And that loss of community, that loss of income, the loss of job, loss of everything was overwhelming. And that's what this feels like. And the way I made it through, I mean, I'm still disabled, but the way I've made it through was to find some purpose, find a reason in my life to get out of bed again every day. And I think that's what's been lost for so many people. They have no job, they can't leave. To find something to live for sounds stronger than I want to say, but to have a sense of purpose. And what I can only speak for myself. What helped me was I had to find a way to contribute to other people's lives. That's where I found my meaning. And I'm so grateful. I mean, 16 years ago, there wasn't Zoom and Facebook didn't exist. There really, there wasn't much. I had farm animals. They were my family that kept me going. I had to get up to feed them every morning, and that's what I had to find. And that's what I'm thinking now. I'm guessing that for other people, that's part of the loss, is that purpose and direction. And, we always dream about, oh, if I could just have a couple months off of work, if I could just have some time to do this or that. But when we dreamed of that, we didn't put all these conditions on that we now have. You know, the dream had a lot of freedom and income and choices and all the things that many people don't have. So I'm hoping, my hope, and I agree, I have to have hope. I can't stay in the despair and be around people. It makes me too miserable. And miserable towards them. My hope is that through this we find empathy that we can carry forward in our lives, and that when we come upon situations or people who are experiencing loss in the future, that we can draw on the loss that we're feeling now to give us empathy to support and be present with other people's pain, and just be there, just be a human being instead of a human doing. And we aren't a society of human beings. We're a society of human doings. And that transition is really, really difficult. So.
Can you say a little bit more about that? The society of human beings versus society of human doings?
Well, we're human doings. We define ourselves by the jobs we have, the activities we do, the achievements of our children. And we are human doings. We define it by what we're going to do each day, what's on your calendar, what parties are you going to go to, you know, as opposed to that time to be introspective, the time to sit with yourself. I love poetry, so I would say it's a time to read poetry, to write poetry, something that is just, who am I, what do I value, maybe even time to appreciate each person's gifts of who am I, you know. I believe every life is a gift and that we all have a gift to give back. That's my philosophy. What is the gifts I have to share that maybe I've never taken time to appreciate or enjoy? Yeah, human being is a lot of for me was a lot of making peace with myself. Because once I was stripped of the job and the income and the car, and I couldn't drive but once a week, I was stuck with me. You know, and being stuck with me was like, oh hell, what am I going to do now? I had no diversions, and it was reality. And I think maybe that, Wendy, does that help some?
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'm seeing lots of heads nodding. We appreciate you putting words to that. Andie?
So listening to Suzanne made me think about when we went through the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, a lot of people lost their jobs or became underemployed, and kind of like Suzanne was talking about, that defined, you know, I think their status or their worthiness. And you know, there's still some people that never recovered for that, or, you know, weren't able to retire on time. And that, I do human resources consulting professionally. So I've studied a lot about the generations in the workplace, and that 2008, 2009 time really impacted the millennial generation and what they value in work and in their manager and in work-life balance. And so I've started wondering, are we going to go through that again? And what impact is that going to have, you know, on the generation that's coming up again? And I just think that, you know, a lot of people will look at work differently and value that differently. And I think Suzanne's right. I think a lot of people are defined by their job, and that equates to their worth. And you know, I've heard a lot of people say that we're in a health crisis, not necessarily a financial crisis, and that once people are able to get out of their homes, that they will spend money and recover. And I hope that's the truth, but just makes me start to think about the impact on, you know, what it's going to do to the workplace and the value people put on their work.
Thank you, Anne.
I'm worried about that too. I'm fine. I'm retired. I get Social Security, and I have some and I'm trying to donate as much money as I can to various organizations. But when everybody is going back to work, say you've got your own business, or you've got a large business, it's a franchise or something. How long is that going to take to catch up? Because so many of these people, they haven't been paid. They're not working for a corporation that can pay them while this is going on. So somebody that hasn't, we'll say like in a beauty salon, they don't make money if they're not there working. So how long is that going to take them to catch up? And sure, they get $1,200 from the government that Mnuchin said supposed to last them for 3 months. Well, he's a billionaire. He doesn't know. And the catch-up time is going to be astronomical, in my opinion. They say that the domestic violence has gone up. All kinds of things that aren't good have happened because of this. And like Lisa said, it's a domino effect. There's things that just aren't going to be cured overnight. It's like if we wake up tomorrow morning and all of a sudden say the disease is gone and everybody's back to work. That's fine, but how long is it going to take the lower income and middle income people to catch up so that their lives will be what they should be? That's going to be a problem. And I think that should be worrisome to all of us. What can we do to help them? I mean, I could give every cent that I own, because I remember my father telling me this one time when I was a teenager. Something was going on, and I kept telling, and they always donated a lot of money. I mean, I don't mean my parents were Warren Buffett type people, but they were comfortable and always donated. And he said, I could give away every cent that we own, and it's not going to cure what's going on right now. We do what we can do. And I'm kind of rambling, but I think all of us can do what we can do, whether it's donate what we can, pick up a phone and call a friend. I've have these long, wonderful visits with friends on the phone now. And that's, and call up somebody that you think might just need a little perking up. But I'm concerned about so many of these people that are going to be out of work, and it isn't going to, we're not going to go back at the end of the month. That's next week. It's going to be a real problem, I think, in our society, and that's very troublesome.
There's so many pieces here. I'm wondering if anyone would like to share more about this conversation that's happening in the chat. It's going back to the, and I think there's an intersection with Anne's conversation as well in terms of the what are we going to do about it piece, and some of what I'm feeling here is the new normal isn't necessarily about an economy that you measure in dollars, but that we need to redefine prosperity. And so if in this moment we're redefining prosperity as relationships and human compassion, what's our obligation to be responsible for our own spiritual wellness around that as individuals and as a community? What are we, what's the we here?
Can I say something, Wendy? I think one of the things that I was picking up on, very much to add on to that, is at some point or other in this opportunity, the gift that we have to be on some level confined to our own space, is that we have to come to grips with the fact that we are enough, that who I am is enough. What I have to give, it's just enough. It's not just defined like, so much of what Suzanne said. It's number one, though, coming to grips with who I am, and who I am is enough. And who I am is enough. And then as we concentrically circle it out, then what I do is enough. The call I make, I can't contribute money, but I can make a call. That I can do. I can't put people back to work, but I can vote. What I can do. Then you start to look at what we can do. but I think it has to come, and I think it comes if we can be still for just a minute in this grieving process and look up to the light or come back to faith or however one wants to say it and realize it's an opportunity to love ourselves, really love who I am, and know that even that Andie want to come, I mean, and we're also worried about everybody. And as we worry, it's okay to worry about ourselves too, and find that way, because when we find the way, that's what we share. Even if it's just in the gift of, I'm going to sit with you while you go through it. Like you said at the very beginning, we all need to go through it. But my doing that for you pays it forward. But it just comes back to we are enough. We are enough. We're enough. And who am I? That's the other piece, is the terrible fear of who I am. I've gotten lost in this. And that's a part of my grieving. I don't know who I am at this point, you know. I know parts of me. I'm a grandma, I'm a mom, but there's other parts of me that have gotten lost in here. And how do I find that is part of the journey, and it's part of the gift. And it's part of the gift I have to say to myself that somehow or other I'm enough, whatever purpose I have is enough.
Thank you, Eileen.
Well, my grief is kind of tied to the fact that my mother is so far away, and the fact that I was supposed to go visit her just coming up and had to cancel my trip. And so she's been somewhat depressed because she knew I was going to be coming, and then of course she knew I couldn't come because I would be exposing her on the flight out to New Jersey. And so we were talking the other day, and she says to me, why do you think this is happening right now? What do you think is the reason that God all of a sudden has brought all this upon us? And we were kind of discussing, like, what is the lesson that we're supposed to be learning? What is it? You know, because she kind of has gotten stuck in the fact that, you know, she's in her house and she's all alone, and obviously her children call her regularly, but that's just not the same to her, because she misses her friends on the bus. Every Friday she would go shopping, and she hasn't been shopping now for several weeks, so she misses all her friends that she normally gets to talk to. And you know, that kind of, I can hear that in her voice every time I talk on the phone. And I said to her the other day, I said, well, one of the things probably is, if you look around now, all of nature and the animals, and they keep talking about how all of a sudden the air is clear and you can see places where you could never see again. And I thought maybe God is trying to tell us that we need to learn to take better care of not only ourselves, but of the earth that he gave us, and that we are not doing that right now. And so this is supposed to show us that, you know, you really need to take care of everything I've given you, because if you don't, it will be gone. You know, the same is true of our relationships with our families and our friends, and you know, we strive to take care of those so that they are long lasting. And so I just kind of keep thinking every day, you know, what is that lesson that we're supposed to be learning? And obviously a lot of people would have different answers for that particular question. But that's kind of where sometimes I get stuck. And I thank Rabbi every morning when we have our morning prayers that, you know, he's there and we can do that, because that kind of brings a little light into my day every morning, which kind of helps me get through some of the grief that I have, especially after I talk to my mother every day. So that's where I am. It's like, what are we supposed to be learning?
Does anyone else have some of that uncovering? I mean, so much beautiful conversation here.
Hi, everybody. This is Elizabeth from Florida. A couple things have been coming up for me. The idea of how we grieve that you started with, Wendy, that like how we allow ourselves to express those really painful emotions. I remember studying in certain tribes in West Africa, a grief ritual that involved, if someone died in the village, then for 3 days there was just kind of like a timeout for the whole village, and a ceremonial fire was built, and there was just singing and sharing and lots of crying, and there was even the understanding that some people might become so overcome with grief that they would just kind of go a little bit crazy. And if somebody was seen just like crying so hard or running into the woods, somebody else would always come and just accompany them and be present for them. And I often thought, like, our grief rituals in our Western culture have gotten so polite, you know, maybe we've gotten so much conditioning about not expressing. But on the other hand, as I'm listening today to everybody, I'm feeling just so much the kind of the sweet tenderness that feels like compassion, that's just so easily flowing through me. I don't think it's coming necessarily from me as some, compassion wizard, but that it's so natural to be present as that compassionate witness that you were talking about, just the witness, and to feel moved by everybody's sharing, and that it is enough for me to just sit here and let your stories touch me and move me and just kind of open my heart even more. And just the other thing that for me has been the hardest is not being able to be with the kids and the grandkids. And the littlest ones are 2 and 5, and I don't live close to them. So anyway, I'm FaceTiming, but I worry, of course, it's just so natural. They're all stuck in this the house, and they can't see. You all know that. I don't have to go into. So when the worry comes up, I work with it because what I want to do is be sending them love and not my energy of fear. And years ago, I heard a teacher say, love and worry are 2 different energies. So it's work, it's a practice for me to recognize that when I'm thinking about my daughter or my grandkids or somebody, and the energy coming from me is worry, that's fear, how can I move back into a place where my heart is open and I can just extend love to them and start smiling again as I think about them instead of frowning when I'm thinking about them. And so it's been a really powerful for me to just see how many times a day I get drawn to do that practice of like switch gears, stop, breathe. What can open your heart in this moment? And then when the heart is open, with great intention, send it to that person that I love and trust that they are receiving. They're receiving my love with the message like, you're going to be okay. And the other thing that's just been coming to me too is my grown children. As much as I want to, as every parent wants to go rescue them from their distress or whatever's going on for them, is I have to keep taking the backward step and trusting that they're learning really important life lessons through all this. They really, really, truly are learning their own important life lessons. And I want to I just want to hold on to that, trust that that is so. But thank you for this. This has been really very beautiful sharing time.
Hi,
Yes.
do you still have a minute?
We have a minute for you, Gail.
Okay. Yeah, my feelings have been kind of waking up to things that I've known, like in America, we value money and power an awful lot, to the point where people aren't working. So, you know, for the sake of the people who aren't working, I worry. For the sake of people who aren't making money off of the people who aren't working, I have a little less, you know, compassion for that. But it just has me thinking about what I value. And I've been working from home. Today is 6 weeks that I haven't been out except for walking in my neighborhood. And I'm grateful I'm working because it keeps my mind off of distress when I'm doing that. But it makes me think about how I spend my time and what I value. And I'm kind of grieving the passing of our old normal. But I'm also looking at it like, how will I change and how will my life change after this for the better? So that's all I had.
Thank you so much. Thank you to each one of you for bringing the blessings of your heart to this space, and the energy to know that the vulnerability that we bring into a container together strengthens us, and that the only path forward is to acknowledge the pain and to walk through the pain together. And so maybe virtually, hand in hand, arm in arm. Yes. Yeah. So for those who have been doing it, let's just do it one more time. Let's just put your palms out to the other. Maybe put a little heat into them if that's what you need. And then to realize that we have a shared energy here in this world. We are all connected and interdependent. We don't necessarily share it equally. There are many among us for whom the pain is deeper and greater, but know that we are sending energy to you and that we feel the energy that you are sending back. Blessings to all of you. Thank you for showing up.
I have just a question, Wendy.
Yes.
One question. Why does it have to be the only conversation about grief and lamentation? I mean, I would love for this to continue one more.
To be continued. To be continued. We owe it to each other to hold this for each other, and we're starting a conversation about the holiday of Tisha B'Av in July, and how we could potentially make a public ritual, and that we realize that the pain is not something we can do in 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, that this is a process. And so, again, thank you for showing up.
Thank you, Wendy.
Good
Thank you, everyone.
Wendy, that thing you had us do where we rub our hands,
yes,
on our face, I've been doing that, and it's so comforting.
Yay, that's beautiful.
It is.
Oh, beautiful. Bonnie's
comforting.
doing
I don't know if it's without
Martin's friend made this for him.
Oh, that's lovely.
I know. He's a devout Christian and wanted to do something special for Martin. That's what keeps us together, right? Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Check out the newsletter and such to know what else is coming up.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.